Okay, I think we're going to get started. I'm sure there'll probably be other folks walking in as we go, but we'll go ahead and time to kick off. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Reynolds Company on our first 2020 user group. So welcome back. I see a lot of familiar faces. Hopefully everybody had a good holiday, and now we're getting back into the swing of things, and projects are happening and business is happening. So welcome everybody back. Anybody here for the first time? All right, we've got a few. Welcome. Welcome to the Reynolds Company. Hope you find this informational. Today's topic, which we normally do on January's, is a automation update. So with the rhythm of Rockwell, Rockwell always has their big automation fair in November. And so what we usually do in January, and the automation fair was in Chicago last year. So I know some of you got to go, a lot of you didn't. So a lot of times what we'll do in January is kind of recap kind of where we are, give you an update, try to talk to you about what's current, what the new stuff is, maybe a little bit of what's around the corner. So, and as always, if you have any questions, please just let us know and we'll do our best to answer them. Go ahead and get started. So of course, we're going to talk about the Rockwell's integrated architecture portfolio. Today, we're going to focus mostly on software and controllers and I/O, but this is a friendly reminder that that's just one piece of the larger Rockwell portfolio. This year, we'll try to incorporate more things like, I guess it took over for me. I wasn't quite done. But anyway, but we're gonna, this year we'll talk about Plant PAX in detail. This is 2020 is a big year for Plant PAX. We're gonna have a dedicated user group later in the year to talk about it. We'll probably talk about networking in the future. We'll probably talk about some other things that are on this slide, but anyway, so the next one thing we want to talk about for a little bit, we're going to bring Andrew Holtgren down. Andrew is our services specialist, and he's going to talk to this slide referencing our e-learning training.
How you guys doing? I'm Andrew Holtgren. So just real quick, Rockwell's rolling out a new e-learning platform so you guys can actually go online and do these classes as opposed to coming here or the Rockwell office to take care of it, so it makes it a little more convenient. They currently offer 14 classes. Some of the good things about it is if you guys are trying for a certificate program, they'll let you use one of these classes, count towards that. Or the accelerated program, this will count, if you take one of these classes, that'll actually clear up your prerequisite also. And they've got, you go to the next slide, they've got a couple different ways to purchase these. If you don't have a Tech Connect, there's only one way. It's you pay $726 and you get to take one course for 90 days. After 90 days, it's over. The next one is a Fast Pass. You get 90-day access, and that's only for Tech Connect customers. You have to have a Tech Connect agreement to have those three options on the left. You get 90 days, and you get a discount, and the price is only $482. So you get a pretty good discount on that. Same prerequisite waived by taking everything the same. There's a single user option where you pay $27.90, and you get access to all the classes for all year long. So you can take them over and over. You can do all 14. And then there's the multi-user, which is the last option, which is the same as single user, but you got to have 50 people sign up for it. So we haven't got that happen yet, but we'll see. Hopefully one day we'll get to that. It's like it's modules. It's like little 8-minute modules that form up lessons. Any other questions on the e-learning stuff? So basically, you'd sign up. We would get you a username and password. You go onto Rockwell's website, plug that in, and then that's when you're, as soon as you guys log in, that's when your time starts. If you have the 90-day pass, right when you guys log in. So just FYI on that, okay?
Are these like hands-on type of classes?
They're
Online virtual machines?
They're just online modules you kind of go through. What?
You just read them and you listen to whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Andrew. And a friendly reminder: all the material that we present at our user groups become available to you. we post them on our website, and you have access to download those and past presentations through our website. If you have any questions about that, just get with us after the presentation. Another reminder, we like to point out tools for you guys to use to shorten your development cycle or your learning cycle. Rockwell has an extensive YouTube playlist that covers a lot of the subjects of Rockwell Automation, including View Site Edition, Machine Edition, Asset Center, and a lot of other things. So don't forget about the YouTube playlist. Just go to YouTube and search Rockwell, and you can see all those things.
And if you're playing around in Google and you're trying to figure out how to do something, you know, and you're asking Uncle Google how to, you know, configure passwords on this, or configure this type of button, or I want to configure this input or output, you know, sometimes there'll be a YouTube link that pops up, and some of those are actually created by Rockwell. So there's been quite a few times where somebody's asked me how to do something that's like, well, here's a link to YouTube, which walks you step by step through how to do it. And, you know, short videos for depending on the topic. So find those very useful.
Okay, so first subject, we're going to do a quick 5,000 update. Hopefully everybody can see this all right. So version 32 is still the latest version, and it's the version that we would generally recommend on new projects. If you can see the release schedule that we've had, the redundancy firmware came out last fall, so that's been out for a while. We are expecting an anomaly resolution February. Version 31 is also out there with an anomaly resolution in the works for a little bit later. And then you still see 30, it's been out for a while, and then a couple other things to note. On the bottom there, right? So version 33 is coming out later this year, and that's going to be a pretty significant version. That's going to coincide with the L8 redundancy, and or about the same time frame, and also it's going to have a lot to do with the new Plant PAX that comes out. So that's notable. And again, a little further out, we'll have a next-gen Emulate that's in the works. Okay, some changes that are right around the corner. You probably haven't seen this yet, but especially our seasoned customers know, there's a whole lot of different versions of 5,000 that's available to you. You know, you've got professional and full and standard and this and that and everything. Rockwell decided to try make an attempt to simplify the buying structure of 5,000. So going forward, there's going to be 3 main sort of versions or levels: light, standard, and professional. And so light is going to give you compact logics access, ladder code, etc. And then standard is going to introduce the control logics, and that's kind of similar to what we have today. But as you know, there's a lot of these add-ons. You have phase manager, you've got logic, you've got networks, you've got a lot of other things. The add-ons will be a la carte to standard, or we still would offer the professional, which would pretty much have just about everything on it. But that's something that's just around the corner.
If you want to know what the add-ons are, that publication there on the left is very, very useful.
Yeah.
For telling you what currently exists in the software you currently own or software that you're looking to buy, to see what is included, what the options are, and what the catalog numbers are for the options if you want them. So I reference that all the time.
Yeah, does anybody know what the Rockwell software portal is? Okay, 1, okay.
2.
So, yeah. Yeah,
so the software portal that's coming out, or it has been out actually, is to try to update some of the software buying experience. So with other vendors, you can go online and buy software directly. And you've seen like Kepware, for example. You go to Kepware site, you can pull up Kepware EX, and you can look at either a subscription cost or a permanent cost, right? So we're doing a similar thing. So Mike's going to the portal here, and it's accessible right off the homepage. But the portal will eventually be where all software is purchased through Rockwell. Okay, you can still deliver the PO and still have the request for quote go through the distributor just like normal, but they generate a quote via this portal now. Okay, you get the quote, you say yes, that's what I wanted, and yes, I agree to not steal it and ship it to countries I'm not supposed to, and you hit yes, right? And then all that legal stuff you never read anyway in the EULA, right? So then when you do that, the quote goes back to the distributor and they process the order, and you get an email immediately with your link to the software, okay? Now, the thing we wanted to just at least bring it up, and we'll do a deeper dive in this later, but the thing we wanted to bring up was they're introducing the concept of subscriptions to this, okay? But if it was a piece of software that you could buy a permanent license for before, you can buy a permanent license now, okay? They're just simply offering it as an option for customers that want that. So Studio 5000, for example, was the first one that is now sold exclusively through the portal. And you can do, there we go. You can do either subscription or permanent. So if you just want to scroll down to designer and near the bottom. This is all the good tools and software that's on there. But a couple of customers have kind of, I'll say freaked out on me a little bit because they went in here and all they saw was the subscription. And they're like, what the heck? Why are we going, like, why are you doing this to me? And so the only reason we want to get this out earlier rather than later was the portal is still in process of getting all the part numbers loaded and the new things loaded. So if you see a piece of software that's subscription only and you know it's supposed to have a permanent license, what's the name of the permanent license? Perpetual, thank you. So, and you know it's supposed to have a perpetual, just wait, okay? It's coming, like they're filling out the portal. But here's an example where on the left-hand side, you can buy a perpetual license with maintenance, and that is a one-time cost of $21.30, okay? And then a repeating, you're killing me. If you want to, come down. If you want to repeat that, where'd you go? Go to the top. If your repeated cost is you just need to stop. Tackle him. So the 426 would be your maintenance cost per year if you want to continue that, right? So every year you do the 426. That would give you access to the new versions. So software updates. It gives you knowledge base access. Okay, and there's no system support that starts with it, but then you can pick support if you want 8 to 5, 24/7, that kind of stuff. So you just pick it in a cart, right? And then you do a checkout. If you have a Tech Connect agreement today, it'll align with that agreement. Okay, so all the dates will line up so that you only still have to do one PO and you're not having to, piecemeal all these together. The idea will be eventually you'll end up with a portal of all of your software for your entire company. Okay, and now you can just say, hey, like we've sold that unit. I want to get rid of that software so I can deliver it to that person that I sold it to and just do an exchange. Okay, or we sold it and it's good luck, buy your own licenses. I'm taking them off mine. And you can literally uncheck the box to say, I no longer want to pay for this software, and it's gone. Okay, so it's kind of a more immediate access to adjust your bills of material in your site software. So anyway, we'll cover that more in detail later, but that just so you know, that's on there. If there's any questions and the software looks like it's not what you think it should be, call in, right? The example I was giving was, you go to a car dealership and you just say, look, I want a truck, I want 4-wheel drive, I want to tow my boat. That's all I'm going to tell you, and just give me a truck, right? And that's what I want. Or you can go in here and literally just pick every feature and checkbox you want to do depending on your level of patience, okay? But they already know about it and have been, we'll say trained.
We've been exposed.
Yes. It's like a disease. So, but that way, just call in for help if you need it. Any questions on the portal? Like I said, eventually this is going into that My Rockwell portal where you'll see all of your hardware and your software in your entire enterprise. Okay, that's kind of the end goal.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And yeah, so just it's an evolving thing, and so we're on this journey together. So if you have any questions, just let us know. We're more than happy to do our best to support you guys. Okay, so so that's that. Let's move on. Okay, so version 33. I think we're going to have a separate user group later in the year when this version gets close to coming out. But this is just kind of a teaser slide. Like I said, there's the version 33 is a big deal for process applications. There's going to be we're going to talk about this a little bit today too, but there's going to be a new process controller that comes out kind of in conjunction with 33 that's going to have a predefined task model. We're going to embed the process instructions inside the controller, so that's something new. And also we've announced some deeper heart integration with some of our IO modules. So that's all things to come. There's also some productivity enhancements like some automatic diagnostics that we're adding, a few other things as well. And of course, the 5580 redundancy is a thing we've all been breathlessly anticipating. So, so here's now that was 33. Now back to 32 for updates or some new things. One of the things that Rockwell has done is refresh their function block diagram editor, and this is a result. So there's some optimizations around some of the function block instructions that.
Yeah, so I mean, for any of you that have played in function block, it is a nice, very useful tool. We've improved on that and made it even more nice and more useful. Basically, we've simplified the way that you can look at more of your Boolean logic. So something that may have been a little bit more difficult in previous revisions for just doing compares and then a move type instruction you would do in ladder has been a little bit more difficult to get your head wrapped around than the older versions. In the newer versions, the blocks are a little easier to understand and have the nice, pretty graphics on them that look like add and multiply and square root. So it makes it a little bit easier. The flow's a little bit better and they're more compact. So they take up a little bit less space. Of course. You've always had control of the wires. Yeah, they go exactly where they want to go. As far as I know, that you do not have control over the wires yet. No, I'm not 100% on that one, but yes. So like 31 was a huge step forward for structured text. For structured text, 32 is that step for function block. So they're still rolling more stuff into it. A couple other things that they came out with in 32 is 64-bit math. For all of you that know and love 64-bit math and wonder why we're still playing with 32, well, we're now playing with 64. To use these, you do need the new controllers. So you need the L8 series controllers in order to handle that 64-bit, the strings. We did bring in a couple different data types. So LReal. So anybody know how many significant digits you get in a reel? In a reel. Yes. Yes. So 6.5 to 7. So right around that 7 mark, you start losing resolution. So you want to find out what the limit is very, very quickly when you get back and have your little demo unit want to play with in the office. Just go make a little piece of logic that says add 1 to a reel and see when it quits counting. It'll go up to a point and basically around 6 to 7 digits is when it's going to quit counting. LReal gets you to 16 digits, 16 to 17 digits. So it gives you that much more precision. So less round off error when you're doing stuff like totalizing and things like that. You get a lot more accuracy. And really you don't have to use all of the best programming practices because LReal makes up for it basically. So you get enough accuracy there that you could be not quite on top of the rollover. We've also added in the unsigned values. So unsigned int, lint for the 64-bit one, and a short integer.
Are these two unsigned or are they 64-bit signed and you're using them as unsigned?
As far as I know, they're truly unsigned.
Okay. But not available for redundancy yet. Not until.
Not until version 33, because these all require the L8. So 33 is supposed to have the L8 redundancy. So Diagnostics, they've added in a couple nice little features here where we can get some advanced automatic diagnostics, and it'll push straight to the alarm and events database or the maintenance screen. You know, you can say what this is, where this is going to go, and this is the type of information I want to get. So I had a rollover or I had a fault on this remote rack. So you get all those little alarms in the IO tree. Those type of things can pop up and say, hey, there's a problem over here without you having to go create that. So that is one of the newer functions with the automatic diagnostics. I don't feel like reading the slide to you, but it is a neat new feature. And Justin looks like he's on the edge of his seat wanting to say something. Oh, okay.
The automatic device diagnostics is a huge push product company-wide. So the drive group, the IO group, all those people are being told to drill more of the ADDA features into their products. So this isn't just a one-off thing. Like, for example, the new Flex 5000, they'll take all the channel diagnostics and push it to this alarm database, right, in that database. So now you don't have to dig into the local channel 2, blah, 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 find the fault. It will now be an enunciated thing.
Okay.
So,
And so the other thing that Rockwell's adding to some of its new IO platforms as well is increased heart integration. So now the idea being you can browse directly to your heart devices in the IO tree without having to use some third-party heart software. And I believe that's on the newer IO. That's like on the Flex and some of the newer implementations of heart that Rockwell's working on right now, and that all those should be on target for release this year, I believe. The heart and there's a lot of other IO we'll talk about later, but this was just a result of the software side of that release in Studio, and that should be at least 32 and 33, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, the adder here is you can have the heart tree now. Right, so having that heart tree is a new thing. Before you had it in the data table, but now it's exposed here.
In the IO tree.
So then you go to the properties of that device.
The heart rate should be at some point for all heart devices or heart modules.
At some point, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So make sure you're doing something else.
Yeah, all the new IO platforms are all slated to have that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to spend a few minutes on application code manager. That's probably a good subject for you, since you use it.
I've played with it a few times. I've dug into it very deep a couple of times and found 32,000 lines of XML code once that I wasn't expecting to find, which helped me learn how it works. So for application code manager, basically the idea is that you can go in there and configure what you want in your code, but you also can tie in your HMI graphics and your historian content into one block. And then as you basically say, I want this valve or I want this pump in my code, it will automatically populate that onto your HMI, automatically populate that in the code, and toss the tags into your historian once you deploy the application. And there's a lot of functionality in there. So Rockwell has taken all of their plant PAX objects and shoved them into application code manager. And when we look at the plant PAX objects individually, there are a lot of options inside of them, a lot of different objects for different types of valves, whether you've got feedback or don't have feedback, whether it's an analog one way or just digital on off or spring return, all sorts of different options there. All that is built into the application code manager as one block for valve. And basically when you select the different boxes on how you want it to configure, it selects the different pieces of code to shove into your program. So that's the 32,000 lines of XML that I was playing with. They went through all of the different many compound nested if statements, basically, of all the different possible combinations, where in most cases we build something, we'd probably build one or two different options on it, going, okay, I want this or that. But you can also pre-tag all of your stuff. So you can assign names, assign tags. And the lab that I went through on it a couple of years ago, we basically built a piece of code, got done, opened up Studio 5000 only for the purpose of downloading to the controller. So it was a complete piece of working code coming directly out of Application Code Manager. So it's a very, very powerful tool, but not everybody really takes it to that level. It is a free tool if you're using the process objects. And then there's also a pay for version where you can create your own content. So, and that is sold through the portal as part of a subscription. So any questions on Application Code Manager?
No, it's for,
It'll pick out your alarm database, it'll pick out historian files.
As far as I know, it
I think
does.
so. I think it,
Yeah. It does.
I mean, if you're an end user in the room, the value of that is that you can standardize the work that the SIs that you work with do. Now you can hand them your ACM library and say, please use my standards to build your code that you're going to build for me. If you're an SI in the room or an OEM, you can be building your own standards using that tool, right? And then that way, as you deploy jobs, you want to tweak something, you just tweak it, and then hit the button again, and it'll regenerate all the files. Right? So, say you get halfway into something, and somebody goes, no, that's not the code we're supposed to be using on that object, right? Well, you can just go back and change it, regenerate, and now you got the code changed.
done. Yeah, well, I was going to say, I guess this slide, specific to Application Code Manager, just discusses the ability to, a little bit deeper ability to manage your dependencies inside of your structures, inside the product. And so you can develop those interdependencies, but then someone that is actually creating the code doesn't have to decipher that. It just you just kind of drop the code in. It's more of a drag and drop type of interface for someone that's just replicating the code. So that was just a new in version 3.0 to make it a little bit easier to replicate pre-existing code that's already been developed in Application Code Manager with certain dependencies, hierarchies, et cetera.
It makes it very easy to be able to grab, in this case, like multiple analog inputs. You build a little piece of code for that. And I know I'm going to need 2 of them for this. So you can take and build within Application Code Manager content for each individual component, but also build the wrapper to say that this is this tank. This is this one, this one type of device. So in this case, it's a water steam tank, basically. And then you can just populate those into your code as you need them. But you can go in and modify any individual function, but you can look at it in more bite-sized pieces instead of the 32,000 lines of XML.
Okay. Any questions on Application Code Manager? All right. So next quick topic would be 5000 Emulate. Actually, we probably just should have said Emulate, because there is a new or a relatively new emulator that's available to you if on the Micro 800 platform. As a show of hands, who's used the Micro 800 in the room or even knows what it is? Oh, a few, okay. Not all of you count on that side, but enough of you do. So with version 12 of Connected Components Workbench, which is the programming software for the Micro 800, Rockwell has released an emulator that goes along with it. So you can develop your code and test the code without having hardware on that platform, as well as the 5000 Emulate that you're used to, or that many of you are probably used to. So that's one of the pieces of news on this slide. The other piece of news is Rockwell has made some acquisitions, and Rockwell is broadening its overall emulation and simulation functionality inside the design suite. Part of that was the acquisition of Emulate 3D, which is a tool that that is really more along the discrete manufacturing automation industry, but it allows you to integrate some of your CAD and some of your physical attributes of a project, and then pull along your automation code into that overall system. That's about all I know about Emulate. If you have any more questions, ask him.
Emulate 3D is a very powerful tool where you can basically take a SolidWorks model of a piece of equipment and assign individual pieces of it. So if you've ever played with SolidWorks, you can go in and change how things are connected based off of what's rigidly connected and what's not in an assembly. Well, with Emulate 3D, you can basically associate those connections with either servos or different functions within the code so that the system knows what's going on and can actually make your model move based on how you're going to want it to move with your code, so that you can actually see your machine run in a 3D space, but with software. So you can verify that interferences, verify that things are going to move the way they're going to move, check your, I mean, even to the point that people have talked about checking cycle times. Yeah. The Studio 5000 Emulate?
It's multi-version now. So you can pick a version you want the emulator to be. Before you had to only use the one you had, right? The last one. So now you just install the latest and you stack and pick the version down. And in one chassis you can have multiple versions in it.
And coming next year should be L8 Emulator.
I mean,
So that, yeah, that's now.
Emulator is a play button, right? They just want to play. That's the end goal. But for now, we have a multi-version emulator.
And so this slide is kind of restating in a different way, just to give you an idea of what tool to use in what situation. So you see the Studio 5000 there and a virtual commissioning type system. Now there's also a number of partners when you get into more simulation. Probably most pertinent to us would be the Cape software that's owned now by Wood or Wood Group. And they do actually process simulation that you can tie in with your hardware to do very detailed either training or simulation type activities. And there's a number of other partners specific for specific applications that are, yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. And so design suite tools. So just a real quick note on the naming. So Rockwell is kind of, they're constantly, their marketing group is constantly renaming and creating fancy graphics and things. And so the Studio 5000 and some of the View license or Studio as well, they've kind of bundled under this thing called the design suite. So we may start using that term if it sticks, but we may not either. We haven't decided yet.
It's going to take me at least 6 months to pick that one up.
But that's what this design suite, it really sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, before they change it. So who here has used Control Flash? I assume it's probably most everybody in the room pretty much. Who here has used Control Flash Plus? Do you like it? All right. So Control Flash Plus saved my bacon. I was trying to help somebody out and I ended up in a situation, you know, the E300s are really nice, easy to flash. If anybody's ever flashed an E300, they're very simple, straightforward. You know, with Control Flash, it takes what, half hour to flash an E300, 20 minutes, something like that. Maybe 15 if you got a good switch. Because there's a bunch of different firmware within the different stack of that piece of equipment. And Control Flash Plus allows you to go out and flash all of them at the same time. So anything on your network. So back with Control Flash, you have to go device by device, flash all of your controllers, all of your cards, everything you want to do individually. Control Flash Plus allows you to do all of this concurrently. So you could basically just run down the list, say, I want to flash all of these things. Here's a revision of firmware I want to flash them to. Hit go. Make sure you tell everybody to leave the power on and don't touch any wires, and go have a cup of coffee and come back and it's done. And I typically don't walk away because I'm still worried about somebody touching wires after I tell them not to. But that is one of the biggest features of Control Flash Plus, is it allows you to hit all the devices at the same time. Now, with some of the newer enhancements, they've actually allowed you to do parent-child relationships where you can actually flash through devices and stuff like, think of on a linear topology, you want to flash 4 devices that are on a linear topology. Things are going to reboot in the process, and you're now losing connection to devices further down the line. So it will do them in a sequential way so that they don't have a problem. So it knows how to do that. So before you had to be very careful, do those one at a time. Control Flash Plus fixes all that. So trying to really simplify the process of getting equipment up and running. And it, to me, is a very, very powerful, very useful tool. And next slide. Yes. So they have basically, so version 3 adds a whole bunch of new functionality. Version 2 up here, the parent-child devices and linear topologies were flashed sequentially. Now they've got the concurrent capability. So even on linear, you can now flash multiple devices at the same time. So it will do it in a way that the last one, it knows how to do them at the same time, because things reboot as you're flashing stuff. It's always like, wait for the reboot, polling for reboot. One of the other pieces, it does allow you to go out and download the firmware. So it simplifies the connection to the firmware sources. So next.
Yeah.
So in conjunction with that, we've also released another tool called FactoryTalk Updater. So who is familiar with Rockwell's current program updater that we use for our proposal works and integrated architecture builder? We've taken that same concept and rolled it into FactoryTalk, where we can now get access to the latest revisions and updates and patches, where it'll go out and find them for you and download them, unless I'm mistaken. So that part may be coming, but it does tell you where you're at and you can load them. So,
But it comes in handy if you're building a new workstation and you install software, and before it gets deployed, you're still connected to the web for whatever. It'll tell you, oh, there's a new subversion of this software available that you may not have known, and so it keeps that real time. So it lets you make the decision: do I want to update or not? But it's a good consolidated way of looking at all your software and possible updates.
So I mean, within here it shows you installed version, latest version, and latest patch, and so whether you're up to date or not. Because that's one of the hardest things to keep on top of, especially in an industrial environment where we don't typically have connections to the outside world, is, do I have all the patches for the latest security so I don't have to worry about, somebody putting a virus or plugging their laptop in that's got a virus and running rampant through my system.
As long as this will be called out to the various versions.
And so if you look at our cybersecurity documents, we talk a lot about how to build a middleware, like a DMC, between the internet and your plant. So then obviously your plant is straight out to the internet. Great that. So if you put an update box in the middle, put your updates on the box, like your firmware updates, your antivirus updates, Windows patches, all that stuff you go on a single update box, and have that reach out to that. So you don't have to have the internet per se.
Right.
That can be done with that, so.
Okay, so we're going to take a slight detour and talk about controllers and hardware for a while. And so I'm going to give up my microphone.
The bottom one.
The bottom one.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Masterson. I'm one of the 4 automation specialists here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the hardware and what changes have come up. Excuse me, that's my phone. Thank you. Okay, big thing for you SIs out there, find your slick customers. We're ready to start migrating them. We have the similar conversion kit that we had for the PLC5 to the ControlLogix. We have the slick to the quad core, compact Logix kit available. So this will make, there's 1 or 2 slick systems out in our area. Actually, there's thousands of them. They all should be targets because those things are going away and they're getting very expensive. Between us, we probably sold like 3 brand new slick systems last year because the customers would not go to a compact Logix. And as you guys probably know, compact Logix is probably at least 40% now cheaper than a slick. Plus, you can have real Ethernet. So these cables do exist. Now, for your customers that want to go from a slick to a 1769 compact Logix, there's a Canadian company that we're a distributor for called Emphatic that makes the conversion kits for that. So if we wanted to go from a slick to a 1769, we do have a migration strategy for that also. And it's fairly economical. I will tell you, per 16-point module, the cables and backplace interfaces runs about $700 per IO module for the wiring conversion kit. So that's on the Emphatic side to the 1769. I'm not sure about the pricing on the Rockwell stuff.
And they can quote this or build this in their IAB tool.
Yeah.
When it's done.
Okay. Any questions on it? Now we want to take a look at what our controllers are. You guys have seen this screen before. And in fact, we're not even trying to teach you anything about any of this stuff. The Micro 800 is our small controller if you're not familiar with it. We've talked about this at least once a year, every year. We still have people buying a lot of MicroLogix 1400s. We want people to get away from that because those will be going away in a couple of years. And this will be our fallback small controller. We would love you to get familiar with it. There's an emulator for it. And if you talk to your account manager, we'll give you a free controller to play around with if you want to get used to the software. We want to make sure we're very comfortable in our position with the large controllers and the medium controllers. We still want to play in the small controller market. And it's not a price issue with this because we're as competitive as anybody when it comes to these inexpensive controllers. We just need to get people used to it because there's so many people who had a background with RS Logix 500 and slicks. The MicroLogix was an easy follow through. We do understand that the Micro 800 uses CCW software and it's a little bit different. But we also have tools that if you wanted it to look like a slick program, we can do that also.
And conversion utilities.
Yeah, and there are conversion utilities to go from take your MicroLogix programs and convert it to Micro 800. Now we're taking a look at our bread and butter controllers here. You guys have seen all these before. The 5370 compact Logix, which are the older dual core. They still have the 2 Ethernet ports, but it is a single IP address. The 5380, which is the quad core, which 2 Ethernet ports, but you can split those in 2 networks if you want to. That's a big reason why we should be selling a lot more of these in the 1769. Last year, our numbers didn't show that. So we're not doing a real good job of pushing you in a direction. And we're going to work on that. So you've seen all this, the 5480 Compact Logics that has the PC in it. I've said bad things about it, which I need to take back now because we need to start selling them. And then the rest of our control logics, which you've seen a lot of this. What's the one that you haven't seen before on the screen? There's a prize. The process one. Justin, and by the way, you win an extra sandwich. Grab one on the way out.
Mike is going to be our new director of marketing for Rockwell. So I want to be in that meeting when he starts. It's like, that's crap, sell that, no, sell that.
It's not crap. Wait, so let me go back because I disparaged the 5480 last year because it was expensive. It uses a UPS. It's not class 1, div 2. It doesn't fit our market. They have brought out less expensive versions of it. So
There's 4 of them now?
yeah, there's 4 of them. When it originally came out, the list price on the largest one was 17 grand or something.
Yeah.
And we knew there's not going to be a market at that price, especially not in our oil and gas market. But they've come down significantly. There is a smaller version, which is like 7,000 or less.
Yeah, it has the same memory as a Control Logics, right? So it's got the same memory as a Control Logics. It's got the PC inside there. So effectively, you have an i7 chip from Intel that's split, where part of the cores go to a Logix processor and part of the cores go to a Windows processor, right, in an x86 environment. So they're also playing around with a potential Linux version of that too. So that you could, right now it's Windows 10 IoT. You could also look at a Linux version down the road. But they also have the most Ethernet ports of any compact. There's 4 Ethernet ports on there. And as well as USB expansion for the drive. So if you want to write logging or something to it. We've had customers that have used that as a Pi interface node for Pi or for Historian as a data collector, and then that way it does store and forward on its hard drive. You could use it as a view node and do a view station on it, or ME station, and that way it's got a display port on the bottom of it, so you could just plug DisplayPort right into a monitor on the front of the panel and do it that way. So lots of different things you can do with that. The new ones, as Mike mentioned, the black ones there. I think that's about how it's going to look too. I'll go back.
I think we have a.
We did it after this one, yeah. The 5480. There's fans on it, and because it's an i7 chip, and if you take your computer at home apart and look at the freaking fan on that thing, right? Imagine now taking that and sticking it into a 4-inch box. That's kind of our cooling challenge at the moment. So right now, that they would like to get there. They've got now one where as long as the program tasks are slow enough, they can take the fans off. But it's like, well, how do I measure that, right? Like, I can't do that. So today, no. But they are working on, like, the UPS solution. It also needs the little UPS card, right, to keep the Windows alive so that it can shut down properly and come back up. Freaking Windows always bites us. So, so the new process controllers there, they look a little bit more like the other picture. This is kind of an early marketing slide. But the point of the P controller, so we've had an M type of controller, which was a motion controller. We had an S type of controller, which was a safety controller. E, which is an Ethernet controller, right? And now we're adding a P. So now P is a process controller. So it's just another type of variant in the market, trying to hone in on exactly what you need in a controller, right? So if you're not doing a heavy process application, don't bother with the P, right? Get a normal one and save a little cost that way. But the P controller, a couple main advantages here is that the entire PlantPX library is going to be in there as firmware. Okay, so you have the access to the entire library from the day you turn it on and can just start deploying your instructions. Okay, that means those instructions also operate faster because they're firmware. You don't have to worry about someone messing with your instructions because they're firmware, right? So no one's going to change your block on you, right? And all of a sudden it operates differently over here than it does over here. You can still use the library, so you can always still download the library and use other blocks and manipulate them and make them your own and deploy your own blocks. But for example, if you wanted to deploy the entire library on day 1 of your project, that's 1.2 megs. Okay, so we're saving 1.2 megs of user available memory that's now being shoved into the back. So now you have your full memory available to you, right? So an 81p, for example, would now have that full 3 meg, okay? You do get the 8 series performance with all the communications benefits there. And they're also going to have some new workflows in what we're calling guard. I don't know what the official marketing term is going to be, but they're calling them guardrails. So imagine you're programming something and you're going to add a big old chunk of code to a task, right? It's going to pop up and say, this is going to take your task beyond the task limit. Are you sure you want to do this? Right? Kind of an are you sure button. Okay, so they're going to add more rails to this thing to try to help process customers to not go outside of the bounds that they had set up inside there and not have to depend on like the engineer that designed it, right? Some of those rules would be in there. Also, when you create a new project in here, it already creates the project in a PlantPX format. So it has no continuous task, it does all periodic, and it sets up the periodic task for you already. You can, of course, do anything you want to it after it's created, but that's just another thing it does. And it's also designed with the XT design. So if you should have the need for whatever reason to stick this in an XT chassis, it's already ready to go with XT. Okay, so it has the higher temp spec, it's got the conformally coded circuit boards, all that good stuff. Okay, so that's the idea, is it'll be canned with all the process library stuff. And they'll have 3 on control logics and 3 on the compact?
3 and 2.
3 and 2.
3 control logics. 2
Like
compact
81,
logics.
83, 85, I think, and then 2 of the compacts.
Right. Okay, the compute module, we've talked about this before. This is our IoT edge device. It does talk across the backplane. The Linux version is available right now. Justin, I said, so I said that in a question. Okay. Is available? Okay. More so than the 5480, we've had more people asking us about this for the edge computing type environment, mainly because it does come with an API to talk across the backplane, which I don't think the 5480 does.
Correct. This has an API, so you can do a software call. It can go across the backplane and grab tags out of the controller natively and then use them in your code.
Instead of going through the network.
Yeah, otherwise you'd set up a links node, right? You'd set up links and communicate that way. Nope, this is ours. I mean, so Oldie did used to make this, which Softing bought Olding, right? I think that was the way that worked. But when they had all those chip problems like 2 years ago, we took the design back because, we never have chip problems, so. But we took the design back to try to manage that a little closer to home since it was so important to us. Because that's the same module, the guts of that is the same module for the historian module, right? So that's also what we use that for. So, but yeah, this now gives us the direct access across the backplane to talk to the tags. You can build the API calls already in there. That is a USB port on the front there that you can use for storage. You've also got, or you could do like, scanning devices, barcode readers, whatever. 2 Ethernet ports that are independent. And then if you open that door, you get a display port. A quick note, that little silver tab around the USB is a retention device, and it is stronger than you are, I promise. Because I've seen customers break the face of that off, trying to break it off. So just push the little clip and the USB will slide right out, okay? But there's 2, you probably have never even bothered to notice this, but there's 2 little tiny holes on the USB stick, right? And those teeth dig right in there and grab it. So that if this was in an actual process application and you don't want your USB drive to vibrate out, right? So that's what that's for.
And this one is class 1 div 2.
Yes. And then the historian that goes with that.
Yeah, historian model, you guys, we've talked about this often enough. All right, now we have a couple updates in our I/O. I think we removed one of the slides, so I'll talk to it here. On the Flex 5000, which is our new improved version of Flex I/O, they're not interchangeable, by the way. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. The firmware for doing the comms module for that has the SFP interfaces, so we take fiber directly into it, are available. And the firmware, so we can do parallel redundancy protocol, actually attach it to 2 separate networks for when we're trying to do gain that extra redundancy that some people are requiring. That is available right now. So that's a big deal for us. On the point I/O, they have added some of the I/O link. I'm trying to think of what technology into the point I/O, and we have introduced some new I/O modules, which we do have a slide on, and we'll talk.
You guys know what IO Link is? Have you heard of IO Link? So I think of like heart for digital. Okay, so on a photo eye or something, IO Link could look at the status of the photo eye and tell you that the photo eye is getting covered. Okay, so that diagnostically it could say, hey, you need to go clean the photo eye. All right, so it's a comms channel on top of that digital signal. Okay, is what it is.
And this is not Rockwell specific.
Yeah, that's an industry standard, so we're just adopting it. But you could put IO Link enabled devices out there, and they could give an extra bit of diagnostics, like my battery's getting low, replace me, my window's getting dirty, clean me, you know, these kinds of things. The whole smart device idea, right? Think of like almost early days of DeviceNet, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had smart devices on DeviceNet that had a configuration in them, and you had that device recovery. So same idea.
Okay. The 5069 serial module, we have talked about this, what we might want to make you aware of it, because this might be a reason why some people are still using the 1769 compact logics. For the 5069, we do have a Modbus card for it. It's not ProSoft, it's Rockwell's. So we can do that. We don't, ProSoft hasn't developed any other comms modules for the 5069 type IO, but they're working on it. So we knew we do so much Modbus here, we knew we needed this card, so we got this before everything else. So it does exist. So if that helps push you into the 5069 compact logics, please take advantage of it. Okay, our Flex 5000 IO. This is probably gives us our highest density. It's also our only IO that we say you can mount vertically or horizontally. So if you're trying
upside down.
And upside down.
Just cause.
Just cause. So it is rated for that. So anytime you're doing a large panel and trying to shove as much IO in it as possible, this is where you need to go. I talked earlier about it. There is a comms modules now that allows us to use SFP modules, so we can come fiber in, copper out now. Just remember that we sell you the SFPs to go with it, because I could see us not, and that being an issue. We also, the parallel redundancy protocol.
What's that? Yes.
Yes.
Single mode, multi-mode, copper, gig, and 100 meg. Finally, I can say something fun, right? Like I got all the.
Yeah, we've been waiting to hear that for a long time.
I took these guys are over in Singapore, this design team. We have a huge factory over there, and they came over to the US and we took them to some customers, and that was like the most fun meeting ever, because they really thought of everything in this design, right? Like nothing that customers threw at them did they not have a good answer. I mean, maybe something was like coming soon, right? But they had an answer for all the needs. So that's the first IO family at all we've had with a native SFP adapter. And the big thing there for you guys, when you're engineering this stuff, right? IT probably doesn't know what comms spec they're going with now, right? They might know later, but later might suck for you because now you got to change things in your design, okay? So if you put SFP in there, now you can just wait for IT to tell you what the comms is and then just put those SFPs in and pop them in, okay? And you're ready to go. So, and if they change it from single mode to multi-mode or back, so don't care, right? Like you just gotta put the SFPs in. So also they can do it can do 16 modules now, whereas this could only do 8. They are the exact same size as FlexIO. So if you are demoing them out, they're the identical size. And there's no pins in the back anymore. So if you've ever bent a pin on a FlexIO card because you misaligned it and jammed it in there, this one has a piece of daughter board that's like that thick or that wide. Okay, so you're literally just putting it in the slot and it holds. So there's no more 90-degree pin insertions that might bend those things. Plus the entire thing is what we call Z-axis removal. So if you nuke this one with like 480, right? Before you'd have to take off that card and that card, pop those 2 pins in the back and slide the whole thing over about 1 inch, right? Well, you might not always have 1 inch, right? Because you got power supplies butted up against it and anchors and the whole world jammed up against that thing. But with this, you just take that card out. You do have to take that one out because there's a little plastic kind of keyway. But then when you screw that out, the entire thing Z inserts out. Okay, so you don't have to shift anything horizontally to replace it. And the entire TB also unscrews. So if you only nuked the board and not the TB, where all your wires are landed, you can just unscrew that, keep the TB, replace the piece that you nuked, and then put it back on, and you're ready to go. Okay? Now you fry the TB, that's on you. You got to get a screwdriver and have fun, right? But depending on what you fry on there, you can replace things ad hoc.
Yeah, one caveat, it has to be a L8 or a 5380.
Yeah.
And version, what, 29 and above?
28.
28 and above.
But 28 has bugs, so go to 30.
Yeah.
Not bugs, they have unexpected features. And they come free with the product, so.
All right, so these are some of the modules that have been released for this. There's one thing that's also not listed here. We do have a universal analog input card, the IY8, which is on a per channel basis, will handle your 4-to-20s, RTDs, and thermocouples.
I'm just kind of zooming in so you can see. Also, these analogs are, these temperature cards here are universal. Okay, so there's no more thermocouple or RTD, all that stuff is just universal analog with heart.
Well, and that's what they don't have listed. We show is so. Now you're gonna have to answer my question. So the IF8IH that will do thermo and RTD.
Oh,
There's
no,
there's
okay.
an IY8.
Sorry, it's the Y.
That's not there. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, IY is the universal analog.
Which
Thank
is you can do on a per point basis. We just recently had that question. So.
Yeah. The thing here they're showing off on the left-hand side was just more of that heart integration, okay? But also when you're adding devices online, where you there's going to be the device type manager is what actually owns that heart profile, okay? So you'll see the different information here. You can dump into the profile about that device, right? And then you get the list of parameters like you're used to before. So you'll see that. There also is some safety modules coming for that. You might have noticed on the first picture, he had a gray module and then a red module, right? So all the family of IO are getting a safety variant of some kind in their product line. And so this one's going to have a safety analog, and also right now, today, it also has a safety DI, a safety DO, and a safety relay. The cool thing with the relay is if you combine 2 channels, you can actually get a 4-amp relay output rather than just a 2-amp that you're used to. So if you combine them, you do lose the channels, but you can get 4 amps on that channel. Okay.
And please note that we do support the umbilicals in case you need to break it up. into 2 segments in a rack.
Yeah, you can, it has an extender, so you can just break it and then come back the other direction, right? So that you don't have to have a giant cabinet. Was that the one that's supposed to be in November? Go back to that,
Seriously, I
go
did.
back one. One more.
I don't remember that being.
Let me look. I have the release notes in my computer. Let me look. Yep. I know it's on the list. I just don't know where on the list.
Okay, on visualization, not a whole lot of change on this product, except we do have one important slide here. The Micro 800 family, again, this is for our Micro 800 controllers, works with Micrologics, can be used sort of with Logix controllers. Compact Logix, but don't do it. The Plus 7, you notice we don't have the PanelView Plus 6. Officially, that is going away September this year. You really should not be buying them anyway. We should be converting you to something new.
The 7 does run your old programs, right? So it'll run 4 generations back?
Yeah.
So a 7 will run 4 generations older, okay? So as long as it's within 4 generations of that shipping panel, you can just take the MER file out, put the MER file in, and click run, okay? And then the 7 is supposed to be like through the 20s, essentially. So we've got basically now we've got about 10 years left, right, on that design. So they're shifting to this 5550, the new PanelView design. Now, the issue today is that there's no conversion tool to go from one to the other, right? Because they're completely different, right? They're not even the same animal. So you have to use this View Designer software, which is part of Studio. So you get it for free with your Studio purchase. But it's just, it uses a much different design when it rolls out. So that'll be part of our FactoryTalk like training days we do here.
Yep.
So when you see emails from the Reynolds company about like in-class trainings here, one of those things we'll have will be the PanelView lab. So you can just play with it and see what you think of the interface.
And we do have demos of the PanelView 5000. So if you want to take one home with you and play with it, just talk to myself or any of my counterparts and we will gladly make that arrangement. It's now time for people to start getting used to it. When it first came out, it had some limitations on it, but they've addressed most of those since.
Yeah, ever since version like 4 or 5, I've been a lot happier with the product. So.
Yeah.
It does come in widescreen designs now, so you can do up to you can see there a 19-inch. Wasn't there a 22-inch?
No, 19 inches where it's, as far as I
Is that
know,
on the
that's where it's going
screen?
to stop.
That's on the screen only? Okay.
Yeah.
So the 19-inch wide for the PanelView, and you can get them in keypad or touch as well. They're also aluminum now, so they don't have the same sunlight issues where the UV can crack the plastic because it's aluminum. And they are working on an outdoor rated family of those. So before, like today, we have one outdoor rated, which is a 12-inch PanelView. They're working on a full line of outdoor rated versions.
Let me skip to that one then. Oh, where am I?
Go back. We're
yeah.
We're going to end this thing early. Okay.
This, because if everyone wants to know the direct knowledge of our high-bright PanelView is a PanelView Plus 6. And I just said those are going away in September. That's actually kind of a major hole in our market.
The hybrid PanelView Plus 6 is going to be going in.
Yeah, they extended
Oh, okay,
it.
that's the only one.
Specifically the high-bright, because it's a gap, we extended the life of that.
Okay, so what we would like you to strongly consider when you have the application, we do have a 12-inch PC where you could run an ME runtime license on. And it is a high-bright, it's 1300 nit. That's probably, if someone comes to myself and my counterparts, this is the direction where we're gonna be pushing customers. Because we don't want to sell, a +6 when we know it has a limited shelf time. And until we have the replacement with it, I feel safer using a PC type application. And I think you're going to find actually there's not really a cost delta in there. The PC compared to the +6 are very competitively priced.
And we still have this 6181X, which is a non-display. It's like a brick PC, and you could slap anybody's monitor on there that you like.
And specifically, the brick PCs will show you this, and this is our last slide. So, yes.
So that 6181, they're saying that'll run like a FactoryTalk Updater.
Yeah.
With ME runtime.
Yeah, with a station runtime.
It's a Windows PC, so you put ME Station on it, and it runs an MER. Yeah. Yeah, because that's a legit license, right? Like the 2-hour limit is just a testing license. That way you can just test anything and try stuff out. Yeah, but it runs a little, in Windows it runs station. But yeah, that's an actual licensed station that'll run 24/7.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're going to run ME on a PC, not the standard panel view box, right? What actually happens is inside that is a license that's already part of the purchase, right? You're essentially running that ME operating system over here, right? So you buy an ME Station license, and now you can run any MER file you want over here in Windows.
Take a look at it, especially since the panel view +6s have been going up. And the fact is you always had to buy those separately, has the display and the logic module. It's a very good pricing exercise, and I'll work it up for you.
This one's higher. This one is 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you're going to have is you're going to say, well, why is it a 12-inch display? Well, I don't know. I wasn't there when they designed it. But 12 inches for small, again, we're using this to replace a small purpose-built skid type HMI. 12 inches is generally large enough.
It's 12 inches because somebody wanted it 12 inches this way.
I guess, I don't know.
That's the
12
it is
and
both
also
the
the
smallest
largest.
and the biggest. And the medium. It's the average.
And just make you aware, we do have the PCs. They are class 1 div 2. We do have a class 1 div 2 shoebox PCs. One of our goals is we're trying to force you guys out of the panel view business and into the PC market.
Is that your market? Perhaps they have a really nasty plant floor environment. Is that our language? Or is
That's
that
your language.
Sweet.
I would have made it a lot worse than that.
It's like our entire install base down here is apparently really nasty. But yeah, that can be now used. That is the PC. And so do they have that? I would assume they have that then on the thin client too, right?
Yeah, they
That's
do.
the whole line.
Right.
Yeah, so that entire VersaView line got class 1 div 2 for it. So if it's either a thin client box or the Windows box.
See the TC up here?
Oh, TC. There you go.
All right.
Thin client. I got you.
Pick up on that fast. Gentlemen, that's our last slide today. So you are free to go. If you need permission slips to go back to work, get with Justin.
Any questions on what you guys saw on the controllers, the hardware?